welcome back to the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar in downtown Bismarck. We're coming to you on our flagship 550 K-Fire for the Legislature Today radio show, as well as our affiliates AM 1100 The Flag Fargo and AM 1090 The Flag in Tioga and the Bakken. And we're going to be spending a little time talking about, speaking of the Bakken, the impact of oil development on oil and gas counties. Brady Pelton, the Deputy Executive Director of the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, will join us live at the Peacock. We'll be checking in with Dickinson Mayor Dennis Johnson. We'll chat with the Director of the Southwest Water Pipeline Project, Mary Massad. We're also going to chat with Williston legislator Gary Sukut will join us, who is a Republican from Williston and Vice Chair of the Industry, Business, and Labor Committee, as well as a member of the Transportation Committee a little later on in the hour. This hour of the program is brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. We begin each hour with a recap on the Legislature Today. Dale Wetzel, Managing Editor for Great Plains Examiner, Great Plains News, here to tell us about what happened today in the Legislature. Was it a busy day on Martin Luther King Day in the Legislature? No holiday for the legislators, right, Dale?
No holiday for the legislatures. No rest for the wicked, as they say. Normally the legislature works through holidays. They do not take Martin Luther King Day off. They don't take President's Day off. There's been at least one occasion in my memory where they've worked on Easter Sunday, and they usually work on Good Friday if there is an occasion to do that. So, yes, it's
just a product of only 80 days to do their business.
I mean, it's just like, okay, we have 80 days to get the things done. Holidays be gone. So that's how that works. In terms of the business that was transacted today, we had one of the legislature's more expensive bills on tap. It was in front of the House Finance and Tax Committee. It's a bill to suspend the state income tax for 2 years. It's sponsored by Representative Scott Lauser, who's a Republican from Minot. It's a unique idea, at least in my experience, in that he wants to essentially suspend the income tax from taking effect for 2 years, and then it would come back in after that second year is done. The tax years that would be affected would be 2013, which we're in now, of course, and 2014, and it would come back in 2015. That raised a lot of questions about, okay, I'm paying in state income tax now when my paycheck is being withheld. What happens to that money? Well, you'd have to file to get it back. There's also the much larger issue of can state government get along without $1 billion in revenue? Even though the state surpluses are quite large, they're also attributable largely to oil prices, which, as everyone knows, are cyclical. And can we afford to take away a steady source of revenue that state government has grown to depend on for better or worse? Representative Lauser sees this as a dry run, essentially a test drive to see if the state government can survive, if that's the term, without an income tax, as 7 other states in this country do, including South Dakota. And we'll see how that works. I mean, it's fair to say that there's much more interest in the legislature in property tax reduction and how to finance that rather than income tax reduction. I mean, the governor has a modest income tax cut bill that he is putting forward. Representative Craig Hedlund of Montpelier has another bill that cuts income taxes more substantially, but neither of those takes the approach of getting rid of the income tax either temporarily or in the future. We also had just for a bit of fun, I guess, an interesting bill in House Human Services about tanning salons. 6 years ago, there was a fairly wide-ranging regulatory bill that affects tanning salons that was approved in the legislature. It says if you are younger than 18, you need a parent's permission to go tanning. If you're younger than 14, you need a doctor's note, and you need your parent or guardian there with you when you're tanning, which would, to me, I can't imagine taking my father or my mother to go tanning, but, that's just me. Anyway, Minot Representative Dan Ruby, he's a Republican. Coincidentally, he's the chairman of the House Transportation Committee. He essentially believes that the law is unworkable, that it's unenforceable, that there are provisions in it that don't really make sense, such as the There is a restriction in there as to how often you can visit a tanning salon. You can't visit one more than once in 24 hours. And Dan Ruby's issue is, well, how do you keep track of someone, whether they're going into a tanning salon more than they should be? And also, is it the question arises, do we regulate people who like to go to the beach and, slather suntan oil on themselves, or they like to mow the yard with their shirt off or whatever, that they're absorbing quite a bit of UV rays just doing that sort of thing. And so why is it that we regulate indoor tanning salons when we don't regulate that sort of behavior? Well, the objections to that line of thinking came from kind of indirectly from the State Health Department. I mean, the State Health Department did not oppose the bill, but they have presented a bunch of information talking about how indoor tanning can be harmful. And the North Dakota Medical Association presented testimony saying that that indoor tanning increases one's risk of getting skin cancer, and that these regulations, specifically the ones that apply to teenagers, that they should be kept. And that's a couple of the things that went on today.
So far, just in committees in both of them, right?
Yes, that's correct. They haven't had committee recommendations. They haven't had a floor vote in the case of both of them, the income tax bill and the tanning bill. I don't suspect that we'll see action on them real quick, but I think that we might see the tanning bill out fairly soon, and I suspect the verdict will not be favorable.
All right, very good. Well, let's get rolling with the hour, and our first guest is on the phone. Dickinson Mayor Dennis Johnson is with us today, and as I mentioned earlier, Brady Pelton will be joining us in the questioning from our sponsor for this hour, the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. Dale?
Mayor Johnson, could you just explain to us how the oil development in Dickinson has affected the infrastructure of Dickinson and what you're doing to deal with it?
Sure. Well, the impact is certainly growing in intensity. And just to give you kind of a flavor for the impact, 2 years ago, the city issued $75 million in building permits. That was a record for us. Then a year later, in 2011, we issued $123 million in building permits, another record. And then the year we just completed, we're at $389 million permits, and we're bracing for $500 million in 2013. Now, all this construction and the growth of population is really stressing the infrastructure. For example, I think when it comes to wastewater, much of our transmission lines are lift stations. The current lagoon system, they are all operating at 100%.
Do you see an end in sight here, sir? Do you see any sort of peak?
Couldn't quite. Yeah.
Do you see a peak in your near future? Do you think that the growth is starting to level off a bit, or what is your perception of that?
No, we don't. We sure don't feel that the growth is leveling off. I'll give you a couple of other statistics. This year, our sales tax revenue jumped 41%. A year ago, it also jumped 41%. Those are huge increases, especially back to back. We don't sense any leveling off. We had retained NDSU to do population and housing projections for us. They've got the city growing to better than 40,000 people. Our guess right now is that we're probably at about 25,000 people.
And how does this affect, sir, the daily lives of your citizens? I mean, people who've lived in Dickinson for a long time and are seeing another oil boom, and this one obviously is much more intense than the last one in the 80s. What is it that they say to you about how this has affected their lives?
I hear a lot of things about the cost of housing. Rents have skyrocketed. There's no question there's a lot more traffic in the community, especially big vehicle traffic. So I hear comments about the traffic, cost of housing, that type of thing.
Mayor Mayor Johnson, this is Brady Pelton.
Oh, sorry, Brady, I don't have your mic up. You go ahead and ask your question next.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Mayor Johnson, first of all, thanks for being here with us today. One question I had was regarding the housing. There have been additions made to the city in terms of subdivisions now. What's the extent of the progress being made on those additions?
Well, I can give you, here's 2 years ago, the city's footprint was so our footprint has increased by 22%. A lot of that has to do with housing. When if you count housing units, for example, a 16 flex apartment building has 16 housing units. 2 years ago, we permitted 211. Fast, still 1,500 housing units. Construction is going. Wrapping it up here. We're adding.
We do not have the best connection to
Our
Mayor
connection
Johnson there.
stinks.
Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you, and so are the listeners as well. So maybe what we'll try and do is give you a call back, Mayor, and see if we can't get a better connection to you, okay?
Okay, that'd be fine.
Corey will go ahead and do that and just see if we can get it. I don't know if it's a cell phone line or if it's a landline, but we were having trouble hearing him about every other word. So we'll check that. We'll have another guest join us in just a moment. As I mentioned earlier, Mary Massad will be joining us, talking a little bit about some of the water issues. We're talking about infrastructure in the oil patch tonight. First with Mayor Dennis Johnson of Dickinson, later with Mary Massad, the director of the Southwest Water Pipeline Project, and then the back half of this hour we'll talk with Representative Gary Sukut. Is that how you say it? Sukut? Am I saying that right? Yeah.
That's right.
Republican from Williston. He's vice chair of the Industry, Business, and Labor Committee, also a member of the Transportation Committee. And the voices you're hearing here, Dale Wetzel, managing editor of Great Plains News, as well as Brady Pelton. Brady's the deputy executive director of the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties.
Brady, why don't you explain to us what the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties is and why it exists, what it does?
Sure, Dale. Actually, that's a pretty easy one. I get asked that question quite a bit. The North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties is made up of 19 oil and gas producing counties in western North Dakota. We also represent the cities and school districts within those counties. Our overall mission is to represent their needs as related to oil and gas development in the West and make that information public and well known to area legislators as well as officials throughout the nation.
And what are their needs?
Well, I can honestly say that one of our primary needs is infrastructure development at this point. We have a need for housing development as well, and everything that goes along with that, water, waste disposal, and so on.
What do you do to apprise legislators of what your concerns are, and what do you do to try to make sure that something's done about them?
Well, like I said before, public information is kind of our specialty, where I'm a registered lobbyist with the association, and my mission is basically to bring the information to legislators so that they can make informed decisions on investments back to western North Dakota.
Tell us about your own background at the Capitol. You used to work for the former Majority Leader in the Senate, Bob Stengham, and you've been a legislative aide. Could you just talk about your background a bit?
Sure. Yeah, I graduated in December of 2010 from the University of North Dakota. After that, I worked for the Senate Majority Leader as the staff assistant during the 2011 biennium. And during that session, it was pretty educational, really. I learned a lot about the behind-the-scenes action that happens in the legislature, and I'm really able to apply that to this position with the association.
When you talk to your friends about what was cool about your job, presuming that you thought it was cool, what did you say to them?
I said, first of all, it was a pleasure to work with Majority Leader Stengham. He was a very inspirational man. He always knew how to get things done and to do it in a way that was positive for everyone. He was a real role model, and I really respected being in that position to learn from him. Besides that, I'd say that was the one and the most cool part of that job.
What did you learn about how things work in the Capitol, how things get done?
Well, first of all, the majority leaders and minority leaders have a lot of influence in terms of where certain legislation is placed. Of course, that has an influence on what ultimately gets decided. Reality, though, I mean, when you have the governor's budget, the legislature pretty much hashes it to death and then puts it back together piece by piece. And that was something that I found fairly ironic when I got done.
Gentlemen, sorry to report that our connection did not improve with Mayor Johnson and Dickinson, so we're going to wrap up that conversation and move to our next guest, Mary Massad, the director of the Southwest Water Pipeline Project, who's on the line now, Dale.
Ms. Massad, could you explain to us what is the Southwest Water Pipeline and what communities does it serve?
Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Ms. Massad,
Okay.
could you explain to us what is the Southwest Water Pipeline and what communities does it serve?
Well, the Southwest Pipeline Project is a project that is built, owned, and operated by the state of North Dakota. State Water Commission administers the Southwest Pipeline Project. The Southwest Water Authority is the entity that's in charge of operations, management, and maintenance of the pipeline project on behalf of the people of the state of North Dakota. We currently serve 31 communities, more than 4,600 farms and ranches. We serve 2 rural water systems, and our population has grown to more than 50,000 people.
So you serve 50,000 customers approximately?
Yes.
Can you tell us some of the larger cities that you provide water for?
Our largest would be the city of Dickinson, and we serve basically almost community in South Dakota. Glen Ellen, Hebron,
All right, looks like the connection is back from this end. Can you guys hear us back at the K-Fire studios now? All right. They can hear us. Can you hear me now, as they say, Dale?
I can't hear anything, but I can hear you. But
all right. I guess the question is, can
So
Mary,
who should
can
I
Mary
speak-
hear us?
So who should I speak to? Yes.
Yeah, Mary, can you hear us now?
I'm sorry, Ms. Massad. We're just using tin cans attached by strings here.
So you could chat with Mary. You could chat with Brady as we wrap up. We have 3 minutes to go in this segment, so we're not going to have much time for Mary at this
Brady,
point.
tell us where you're from originally.
Well, I'm originally from western North Dakota.
Where in western North Dakota?
Particularly a farm and ranch. I grew up just north of the city of Dunn Center
North
in
of
Dunn
Dunn-
County.
So what did you do when you were a kid? Did you, punch cattle or raise corn? What did you do?
Oh, yeah, all of the above. Yeah.
You raised corn in Dunn Center?
We did.
I'll be darned. That's awfully
Corn,
far
wheat,
west.
barley, oats, everything.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So what did you like? Did you want to go back and be a farm and rancher? What was your ambition?
I think that that's definitely in my retirement plan. I think that a hobby farm might be in order, but it's not something I want to do full time.
We have 2 minutes till the bottom of the hour, but we do have Mary back on the line, so we can finish
Excellent.
that conversation as well.
Hello, Mary. Sorry, but we are just kind of having some technical difficulties here. I guess
That's fine, Dale.
where does the Southwest Water Pipeline go from here? Do you have enough capacity to serve the increased demand that you're experiencing with the oil development?
Well, we do currently, but for the projected growth that we're seeing for the long term, no, we don't. And within 2 or 3 years, we will be having serious issues. So we are looking at a second intake, which we needed for our project for Oliver Mercer North Dunn service area anyway, but that will be increasing in size as well as getting additional water to Dickinson, building additional capacity for a treatment plant there. And I can't forget the folks, Dale, who have signed up years and years ago for water, like Brady's family, who are still patiently waiting for water in their region, too. And hopefully adequate funding, we will be able to do that in this next biennium.
Thank you for your time, Mary. Mary Massad is the administrator of the Southwest Water Pipeline, which supplies water to 31 communities and approximately 50,000 customers in southwestern North Dakota.
Sounds like Brady rather has some more stories to tell.
I really missed the boat. I should have said.
Well, you know,
I should have said, Brady, are you getting water from the pipeline?
Save that story for the next half hour. Don't go away. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate the time tonight. And we'll be joined by Representative Gary Sukut, Republican from Williston, on this issue as we continue on the Legislature Today radio show, brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. More after this timeout. Don't go away. If you are in or around Bismarck Mandan, we invite you to stop by the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar, where they have some great specials always. And tonight it's BAM mugs, which basically are very large mugs. And the BAM mugs, BAM Mondays is what they're called. And that means $1 off the big beer mugs. Dale is still working on trying to figure out the acronym there. But
hey, I know the acronym. I just have too much restraint to say what it means on the air.
Anyway, they're $1 off. The rather large mugs.
They're $1 off, yes.
Yeah. And also, all of their burgers are $1 off.
Indeed.
As well. So anyway, that's the Monday specials. Now you're up to speed on that. This hour of the program brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. Brady Pelton, the Deputy Executive Director of the Association, is joining Dale in the questioning tonight. And we have our next guest, who's the Vice Chair of the Industry, Business, and Labor Committee, one of the more influential committees in the State House in North Dakota, and also a member of the Transportation Committee. And we're talking a little bit about all kinds of infrastructure issues in the oil patch tonight with Representative Gary Sukut, Republican from Williston.
Mr. Sukut, what is going on in the legislature presently to try to help the western part of the state, specifically the northwest, where a lot of the development is going on, for the public works structure to handle that?
Well, I guess there's a number of bills that we're looking at to try to address a multitude of issues. Actually, we've got a gross production tax bill that I think is finally going to hit the skids here pretty soon. Today was the last day to put it in. It's going to come in on the House side. We have a sales tax bill that's House Bill 1096 that we introduced last week, which has to do with changing the distribution formula a little bit for sales tax. We also introduced another bill on the Senate side this morning, which has to do with sales tax also. That was Senate Bill 2137, and that bill has to do with reinstating the ability for school districts to use sales tax dollars to build facilities, which we, in all our wisdom as the legislature here a couple of sessions ago, took that away from the school districts. So we have all of those kind of in the works right now to try to address some issues, and of course we have some bills involving the WAS Water District, which is very important issues in northwestern North Dakota. Those are in the works also. So we have a lot of issues in western North Dakota, and we're going to work real hard at trying to address a lot of those issues this session.
When you talk about the gross production tax and how it affects western North Dakota, what do you mean by that?
Well, this bill is going to do a wide range of things. Actually, it's going to end up putting a lot of money back into the cities and the counties. It's also going to put a lot of extra dollars back into the schools, the EMS services, which are definitely struggling out in western North Dakota. There's dollars in that bill, extra dollars in the bill for EMS services. The townships are going to benefit tremendously. There's a large percentage of the dollars that are going to go back into the townships, which, of course, the roads in the townships are are definitely getting beat up pretty badly. There's dollars going back into law enforcement, and there's dollars going back into the fire, all of our fire departments. So there's some pretty decent splits in all of those areas, and those are all areas, of course, where there are huge issues, and so that bill's going to make a real attempt to address a lot of those issues. The other thing outside of the bill doesn't just address the issues in the oil-producing counties. It also addresses, makes an attempt to address a lot of the road issues that exist in the rest of the state of North Dakota. There is some excess, some dollars in excess of $200 million that the bill sets aside to be used in the non-oil producing counties, which will attempt to address a lot of the road issues that have existed in the rest of North Dakota for years. So we're in a nice situation, hopefully, where we're going to be able to address a lot of the issues that have laid dormant for a lot of years, not just in western North Dakota, but in the entire state of North Dakota.
And when we talk about the production tax, Representative Sukut, we're talking about the tax on oil, are we not? And we're talking about the share of that tax that local governments are going to receive.
That's correct. We're talking about the 5% tax. There are actually two taxes. The gross production tax is a 5% tax, and the oil extraction tax is a 6.5% tax. And we're talking about using the dollars from the gross production tax, that 5%. We have 80% or 4/5 of those dollars are the dollars that are scheduled to go back to the oil-producing cities and counties. There is another pocket of funds then that's going to come from the other 1% out of that 5% that is going to be split up amongst what we're classifying as the hub cities. The hub cities being the three larger cities in the oil-producing counties, Minot, Williston, and Dickinson. And out of included also in the hub city section of that bill, the schools are integrated into that one, the schools that are part of the hub city schools. So you're talking about the school districts that are in Minot, Dickinson, and Williston that are going to receive a percentage of what each city receives. So those districts are in line to get a pretty good substantial amount of dollars also out of that bill. So it addresses a lot of the major issues that exist in western North Dakota right now.
And you were talking about using sales tax for school construction. Is that not able to be done now, and why do you think that that's a good idea?
Well, it's not available at this point in time. In fact, as far as I know, it's the only thing that doesn't qualify for using sales tax dollars. And the issue right now, I guess I would have to go back and just kind of review what just recently has happened in Williston. And in Williston, we just had a bond issue, a $55 million bond issue to build new schools. And the community defeated that rather healthily. And as you visit with the constituents in Williston, Williston has basically what's classified as a property poor school district. So when they were spreading that $55 million amongst that small school district, it got to be very expensive per household.
In terms of their property tax, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. You were looking at about $300 per household with a value, assessed value of $100,000. So in Williston right now, a lot of folks are paying close to $300,000 for just a starter home. So you were talking about another $1,000 a year in property taxes to support that school. And the the people just weren't ready to take that load on. So a lot of discussion after that failed. I and the other legislators had a lot of folks contact us and say, why are we not able to go to the sales tax and use the sales tax to support our school district? And that's why, that's where Senate Bill 2137 comes into effect. And what that would do, would simply provide another option for the folks in western North Dakota. And it just isn't. We had support today on that bill from Watford City, from Ray, and from Tioga. So a lot of the cities in western North Dakota, and in visiting with just some of the other legislators from around the state, they felt it was time that we take a look at that again and at least open up that option. And that bill actually had a sunset in it, so we left a window in the bill with a 4-year sunset, so that if the legislature decided that they wanted to go back and disallow schools using sales tax to build facilities, they could in 4 years. But at least it would open that up and allow a lot of these school systems that are struggling right now, figuring out how they're going to finance facilities. It opens up that option, and the people still would have to approve that option, and it would take a 60% vote of the local constituents to pass that sales tax issue. So we're just saying this should be a local issue. This should not be something that's controlled by the state of North Dakota. This is a local issue, and that's what that bill does. It puts it back into the hands of the local.
Do you think that the voters of Williston would have approved this bond issue if it had been the sales tax paying it off instead of the property tax?
I think the vote would have been a lot closer. I think there definitely would have been a possibility of that passing. I think the school board and the school system has a little more work to do in terms of public input and public support as to just exactly how the system's going to be put together. They did a pretty good job of laying out the initial concepts, but I think more detail was needed for the public in order for them to make a final decision. And I think the sales tax, with that and the sales tax thing combined, I think it would pass.
You have some background in the school system, do you not?
Well, I can't say that I have anything directly, but I was a teacher in my early years, a teacher and a coach in my early years, and grew up in Williston, so I've got a good idea of how things function in the community.
What did you teach and what did you coach?
I was a math teacher, and I taught math at the college for 10 years, and I was a football coach.
How successful were you as a football coach?
You know, I was an assistant coach, so I can, whatever success there was, I can say I was a great part of it, and whatever losses there were, I can say it was
somebody else.
I was the only. I had the freshman football team in Williston, and I can say that I was their head coach, and that's the only experience I had as a head coach, and we were 8 wins and 1 loss, so I can claim success in that area.
You're listening to the Legislature Today radio show. We are coming to you from the Peacock Alley, downtown Bismarck. About 10 minutes to go in this hour, brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties. Brady Pelton, the Deputy Executive Director of the association, is with us tonight in the questioning, and our guest is Representative Gary Sukut, who represents Williston, Vice Chair of the Industry, Business, and Labor Committee. Brady, any questions for Representative Sukut?
Representative.
Careful, Brady.
I will tread carefully. Representative, can you talk a little bit more about the housing situation in the Williston area, and particularly District 1?
Well, housing, of course, has been and still is a major issue. And we've had a tremendous amount of building. I'm getting dry here, so I'm drying up. Can I steal a little bit of your water?
Dale is kindly, anything for the guests, right, Dale?
Of course.
Yes, exactly.
I noticed you didn't offer him your water.
Well, I didn't think I had much left there.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
We have in the last couple of years built between 2,000 and 3,000 apartments, and there's probably another 1,000 online to be built. Home-wise, within the last couple of years, we have built somewhere between 500 and 1,000 homes. And a lot of those are close to coming online. The apartments, one unfortunate, I guess I would mention, one very unfortunate thing that has happened is a lot of the existing apartments that were in the community have been purchased. People had an opportunity to sell their properties at a good profit, and as they sold them, of course, the new landlords coming in raised the rent in order to compensate for their new investment. And unfortunately, when they raised the rents, we had some folks that were forced out of their apartments, and that part was has been very sad, but overall, we're finally getting to a point to where we're starting to have open housing, and we're looking forward to that point, because as that finally we get to the point to where we're built up to where we're somewhat stabilized, we know that the rents are going to start to come back down to realism, and what we're needing in that housing is we need the moms and the kids to be moving to Williston now, because we really don't have that secondary workforce that we need to provide the retail to come, and that's going to be the last thing to show up, and we're thinking that's the next thing now that's going to happen, is we're going to start to see some retail. But the housing continues to grow, continues to build, and we hope we're getting closer to addressing that problem.
Could you tell us what does a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment go for in Williston, and what does a 2 or 3 bedroom home go for?
You're on the low end. You're probably talking $1,200 to $1,500 a month, for a single bedroom apartment.
And that's the low end.
That would be the low end.
My goodness.
Yeah, and then you get up to the other end, and you're talking at $2,000 to $2,500 for a bigger apartment, and you get into renting a home, and you could be looking at $3,000, $3,500. It's expensive.
What did it cost before the boom? Like a 1-bedroom apartment?
Well, you could find 1-bedroom apartments before the boom at $400, $500, $600 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Representative, one other thing that our association is keeping its eye on pretty constantly is the Housing Incentive Fund, and the governor recommended a $50 million continuation of that Housing Incentive Fund. Would you say that that's helping out in the Williston area at this point?
Well, it has helped. It very definitely has helped, because we have three projects in Williston. A 74-plex unit that is using those funds, been supported with those funds. We've got an old junior high school that is now being renovated for low-cost housing for seniors, and that's using that fund. So that fund, I think that fund is working, and hopefully people are figuring out that they can take their state income tax dollars, put it into that fund, and use it as a credit, and build that fund up, and definitely it's very beneficial for all of us to use to build low-cost housing, and that's statewide.
Could you tell us what it's like to live in Williston now versus what it was like 10 years ago?
Frustrating.
How so?
Yeah, we're excited about what's going on out there. It's just exciting to see all the growth, but it's not without its frustrations. The traffic is absolutely unbelievable. We're used to being able to go from A to B without any interference at all. Well, now going from A to B, you're taking different roads and different streets because the traffic is so heavy that you can't get on to some of the streets. So the traffic, I think, has really created a tremendous amount of frustration. And then, we still have the retail to take care of our normal population, which was 14 to 15,000 people. Well, now we're talking about twice that many people. We still have the same retail services, so people are frustrated with that. We've got a lot of eating and restaurants that have now started up, which does help, but all of the rest of the retail has not shown up yet, and that's an area of frustration for people also.
What do folks do for fun in Williston?
Well, we do a lot of hunting. We do a lot of fishing. We've got Lake Sakakawea there. There was some of the best walleye fishing that exists in the entire North America. Great hunting, snowmobiling, all of those types of things. Outdoor activities. I mean, for outdoor activities, we've got great outdoor activities for people. We've got 3 great golf courses in the summertime. The Links Golf Course is rated as one of the best one of the best 100 golf courses in the nation. And we've got another municipal course that's a 9-hole and a great country club course.
These bills that we talked about earlier on, Representative Sukut, what do you think are their prospects for approval by the legislature? I mean, do you think that the rest of the legislature, the folks that do not represent oil and gas producing counties, are ready to embrace the kind of restructuring of the production tax proceeds in the way that you would like?
I think the gross protection tax bill is going to be received quite well. I suspect that in the end, that bill will probably get combined with possibly the governor's bill, and that bill is probably going to end up in a conference committee. But we're hoping that's the bill that we work off of, and whatever needs to be done to that, then in the end, we think a good share of that bill is going to come forward and going to help Western North Dakota a lot. The other 2 bills that I suggested to you, we're going to have to work. Those are definitely not just going to flow through without some real work.
Is the sales tax for school construction bill going to be problematic?
Well, I'm not sure. We get mixed emotions when we visit with people, a lot of the legislators, and there does appear to be actually more support there than what we thought we were going to have. So I think we're going to get some real serious consideration on that bill. The other redistribution of the sales tax bill, there seem to be people that are nervous about messing it all with the current formula, although when you take a look at this bill and the way it's put together, it's a win-win situation for everyone. And so, but we've got our work cut out on that one.
We've been speaking this evening with Williston Representative Gary Sukut, who is a Republican from Williston, the heart of North Dakota's oil boom. We've also been speaking with Brady Pelton, who is the Deputy Director of the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties and a native of Dunn Center, north of Dunn Center. We'll talk to him later about his strawberry blonde hair, maybe. And that's all. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, and we look forward to speaking to you again about as these things, these bills that you mentioned, move forward.
Thanks for having me.
Brady, we'll see you next week.
That sounds great. Thank you, guys.
Very good. Enjoyable conversation as always. We thank our listeners as well for tuning in tonight. Dale, have a good evening.
Thank you, Scott. Same to you.
Another hour in the books of the Legislature Today radio show. This hour brought to you by the Association of Oil and Gas Counties. Remember to join us live and on location when you're in Bismarck-Mandan, Monday through Thursday nights for the Legislature Today radio show from the Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar. And join us online at GreatPlainsNews.com. All of the programs of the Legislature Today are archived there. You can also watch our live webcast of the event as well Or listen right here on 550 K-Fire, our flagship of the Legislature Today radio show, and our affiliates AM 1100 The Flag Fargo and AM 1090 The Flag in the Bakken.